to the Italian Football Podcast.
Hello everybody and welcome to the Italian Football Podcast. I'm Carlo Garganese, joined as always by Nima Tavale. So, Napoli are nearly there. A historic win in Turin against Juventus means that Napoli could win the Scudetto this weekend. We'll be reviewing today a dramatic weekend in Serie A. Milan and Inter celebrated their Champions League successes last midweek by both winning as well. Romelu Lukaku finally rolled back the years. And is he back or is it another false start? Rafael Leao was unstoppable while Lazio had a surprise defeat. On the back of Serie A having 5 teams, incredibly, in the semi-finals of Europe, we've got a segment looking at whether Italian football is back or whether this is just a one-off season. Nima will also run us through some of the legal questions from Juventus getting their 15 points provisionally back last week. So there's lots to talk about in today's show. For all our first-time listeners, this is our free weekly episode, which we do every Monday, reviewing the weekend Serie A action and all the biggest talking points in Italian football. If you want to support the Italian Football Podcast and receive all our content that we do throughout the week, including our weekly Q&A episode every Tuesday, where we answer all the questions sent in from our patrons, plus the weekly Thursday midweek review show, plus interviews, post-match reaction, and much, much more, then go to patreon.com/TIFP and you can become a subscriber for just $2.99 a month plus VAT. And for all of you listening on Spotify, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, and so on, we'd really appreciate a 5-star rating. Give us a follow and subscribe to us. And we're also on YouTube as well. Do all that and it really helps us to grow. Okay, Nima, let's get into it. Right, let's start off with the big Sunday evening game. Juventus versus Napoli. Napoli winning 1-0. They're on the brink of the Scudetto now. 1-0 victory thanks to a Raspadori goal in injury time. They've done the double on Juventus this season. Only the 4th time in Napoli's history that they've done the double on Juve, which again underlines the historic nature of this season for Napoli. They are 17 points clear in Serie A with 7 games to go. And if Napoli beats Salernitana on Saturday, they will be champions if Lazio then only manage to draw, or if they were to lose to Inter. Lazio basically would have to beat Inter in order to keep it going for one more week. But whatever happens, it doesn't matter, Nima, does it? Because Napoli are going to be champions very, very soon.
Napoli are champions of Italy elect. It's only a matter of time. And we've known this for quite some time. And I've been saying for a few months that I think match day 32 against Salernitana, that weekend is when they'll clinch it. And I think that is when they will clinch it. I think we're going to a historic Sunday that will see Napoli win the Serie A for the 3rd time in their history. In the year 2 AD, after Diego, both Argentina and Napoli turn the page and after Diego and win their 3rd successes, World Cup and Serie A. And it's a fully deserved Scudetto. They have been, without a doubt, the best team in Italy this season. No matter who you support or where your biases where your biases lay or your allegiances lay, to deny that Napoli have been the best team in the Serie A consistently this season would be on par with arguing that the earth is flat, because it does not correlate with reality. Napoli have been by far the best team consistently, and they have played some of the most exciting and beautiful football that we've seen any team in Europe play this season. And I think just the way that the tide turned. I mean, Napoli coming from that negative result against Milan, coming from that negative atmosphere, suffering in this game against Juve, which I thought this was a really good game, by the way. I thought it was exciting. It had drama. It was crazy. And to do it the way that they did it, at the death, 5 years to the day almost, if I'm not mistaken, to Koulibaly's header at that same stadium that didn't win them the Scudetto. Raspadori kind of secures it, because that will be the moment that people will remember. Even if, beating Salernitana at home is something that Napoli you will, expect to do. But beating Juve away at the death after all that drama with Raspadori of all people, who's had a very inconsistent season. We spoke about it on the pod a few weeks ago about what is his best role. And he comes on and he scores the winner in that fashion. That will be kind of the icon, the photo of the Scudetto is him at, celebrating Napoli celebrating on the way from, back to Naples, the fans, Napoli fans greeting them, the motorcade that we've seen that Anguissa put on his social media. All of these things are now iconic imagery in Napoli's history. And it's truly, it's so deserved. I'm so happy for Luciano Spalletti, a coach who I think has been one of the greatest coaches in Italian in of his generation, and has always been so poorly treated and kind of been given this kind of loser stamp, which I think is so unfair. Because if you look at the teams that he's coached, whether it was Roma or Inter or this Napoli, he has always, or Udinese or whatever, he's always gotten the maximum out of every single team he's coached at club level. And he's developed players. He's got so many players have been kissed by Inzaghi, kissed by Spalletti, one could say. The magical touch of after Spalletti gets his hands on them, they take that next step. There's too many to mention, and it's so incredibly well deserved, and it coronates a career which I hope it doesn't end here for him. I think it would be beautiful if he could enjoy this ride for a while. But I mean, we'll get to that in later episodes. But no, it was a very good performance overall. I thought the attack was clicking again. In the link up play between Osimhen and Kvaratskhelia, Lozano, the midfield was just at times it was just as good as it's been all season.
Yeah, I think the real Napoli started to return in this game. I think the first half, I mean, we've seen Napoli's form, has dipped in April, and that has resulted in them going out of the Champions League. And they'd going into this game against Juventus, they had 1 win in 5 games. 3 of those games they didn't score in. And another of them they only scored at the 93rd minute against Milan, in midweek last week. And I felt like the first half against Juventus in this game followed a quite similar pattern. Controlling possession, but looking quite toothless. Like I thought Juventus were pretty comfortable in defending them. We'll come on to Juve. I thought Juve defended them pretty comfortably, even for the first hour of this game. But then I think everything then we started to really see the real Napoli in the last half an hour. And they created, I counted 4 big chances for Osimhen in the second half, and then, which he didn't score. And then, of course, they won it at the death with Raspadori. They were it was the real Napoli again. I know Juventus had those 2 goals disallowed. They had a couple, which you could say they were goals, but they were disallowed. But, Napoli, in terms of offensively in that last half an hour, that was the real Napoli returning it. And that was the Napoli that's won them the Scudetto. And they had a 1.98 XG in this game, which is very impressive away at Juventus to have an XG of basically 2. So I think that we saw the real Napoli again, and Napoli, like you said, they showed heart, they showed balls to come and win here after the disappointment of midweek, because that was a big blow. And with everything that's gone off the pitch, with the fans and everything, I think that this showed everyone that there is a mental strength to this Napoli the team. Yes, they showed naivety in that Milan defeat, no doubt about it. They showed their inexperience, but they also showed here that they do have the mental strength that is required to become champions of your country. And Di Lorenzo I thought was fantastic, led by example as captain, and he got the assist. Kvaratskhelia was brilliant in the second half. Absolutely brilliant, and he made a mockery of those that were just saying a few days earlier that he's overhyped. Osimhen was a pain in the arse again. He was wasteful in front of goal. If there's one criticism, he was very wasteful. He missed some really huge chances.
But that's what we can say about him generally this season, and that is an aspect of his game that he can improve and must improve on.
And Kvara as well.
Yeah, Kvara as well.
Kvara, I would say even more.
I look at Kvara a little bit different than Osimhen, because Osimhen has been at this level for a few years now, or playing at Napoli for a few years at the top of the Serie A. This is Kvara's breakout season. Of course, you can improve on everything when you're a breakout star. But with Osimhen, I feel that he's so complete in every other aspect that I feel his finishing being clinical is all that's the final step that he needs to take. If he can become more clinical and bury more chances and have a conversion rate of 60-70%, we are talking top world class striker. There's no doubt.
Well, for me, he's already world class. For me, he's already world class. It's just a difference between scoring 30 goals a season, which he'll get this season, and scoring 40 or 50, like Haaland's is going to score.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean, because he's up against Haaland, he's up against Mbappe. Do you know what I mean? He's up against Lewandowski. You know, these are the people he's going to be compared to, and I think that he deserves to be compared to them, given how he plays. But in order to fully
to take the final step and become a Ballon d'Or striker,
that's what I mean. That's exactly
what he needs. That's what he needs. Yeah, and I mean, the party, the Scudetto could be won this weekend, and it's going to be the party of all parties. I mean, anybody.
Oh, it's Naples.
Anybody that was old enough, and I wasn't old enough to remember the 1987 Scudetto win, but I've seen all the videos and all the everything, all the parties and that went on. I mean, the party went on for weeks, months actually.
And this is going to go on for months as well.
Yeah, I mean, some of the stuff you're going to see is going to be, because there's one thing about Italians and Neapolitans especially, is they know how to party, they know how to throw a party, and they're very creative with how they go about it. And some of the stuff, if you have a look at some of the stuff that went on in 1987 when they won the Scudetto in 1987, I mean, just to give you a couple of examples, absolutely brilliant. You know, they put a banner and held it outside the biggest cemetery in Naples, and the banner read, "You don't know what you're missing."
Yeah, I remember that,
which is just brilliant. I mean, they're gonna do another one of those. They held, and this is pertinent to beating Juventus. The coffin of Juventus.
That's classic. That's classic. That's old Italian. Like, that happens all over Italy. I remember interviewing Thomas Nordahl, the son of the great Milan striker Gunnar Nordahl, and he spoke about growing up in Milan. Every time Inter won the derby or Milan won the derby, they used to have a funeral procession in the city with a empty coffin draped in the colours of the losing team. Yeah. So that's an Italian thing. Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be absolutely incredible. So, yeah, we look forward to that. Let's talk from the Juventus's point of view. In terms of the overall performance, I don't think was terrible from Juventus.
I thought Juve were okay.
I thought their overall performance was okay. Yeah, they were organised. They competed well. Of course, they had those two goals disallowed, which I think were correct. But it's a little bit of bad luck.
The second one, I mean, the ball is out of bounds. What are you going to do? It's out of bounds. Out of bounds. But the first one, I honestly don't know what the correct decision is there, because having looked at that situation 100 times now, I genuinely feel that both have a legitimate grievance, both Napoli and Juve. I really don't know what to do here, because yes, he tackles Lobotka first, but is the tackle strong enough to warrant a free kick? Yeah. I mean, it's like, I really don't know what the right decision is. I'm so happy I'm not the referee, because it's one of those situations where you're damned if you are, you're damned if you don't.
Yeah, my feeling is that I generally favour the defender in these instances, because I feel like a goal. This is why I moan so much about penalties, and I think they're too much reward, because scoring a goal is so sacred in football, and I feel like the referee should always err on the side of the defender if there's ever in any doubt, because a goal is just so important in football. It's not basketball or tennis or even rugby or the sports where you can come back and
high scoring, handball,
high scoring game. So I feel like if they're ever in doubt, and I feel like whenever it's a 50-50 like that, I feel like you should err on the side. But I think my issue with this, and I am kind of largely in agreement with you, my issue with this is, and I'm saying this as somebody that hates this idea of the what's the saying they use when for VAR should only change a decision if it's a clear and obvious error. Clear and obvious. So I think that's the biggest issue here: is was this a clear and obvious error? If the referee originally, I mean, in my opinion, that's a stupid thing to say. I think if it's a free kick, it should be. If it's an infringement, it should be an infringement, whether it's clear and obvious or not. But we know what the rules are. The rules are that the VAR shouldn't overrule unless it's clear and obvious. Now, for me, is it clear and obvious? I would say it probably isn't. So that's my only issue with it. But I mean, personally, if I was making a decision, he does touch him first, and then he gets the ball. But like you said, was the touch enough? It's a tricky
the thing
one.
is, you're allowed. Like, this is the thing with the laws of the game, is that even if you take the ball first, it's not. It goes both ways. Even if you take the ball first, if the challenge is too rash, it can still be a foul, and the opposite is true as well. So it's
like Rafael Leao, wasn't it? Rafael Leao last week. He won the ball and then took out the player afterwards.
I mean, it's like I honestly, these are such tight decisions. I honestly don't know what the answer is. I really don't know. And I think that it really is 50-50. It really is just what your perspective is. You can't say that it's a scandal or the wrong decision was made, because it really is 50-50 based on
my only issue with this in terms of what are the actual rules is that having already given it, I don't see it as enough of a clear and obvious error. I mean,
that depends, Carlo. If the referee if the communication with the VAR, the referee says he took the ball first before touching the player, and the videos show the exact opposite of that because the referee didn't see the situation clear enough, then that is a clear and obvious error, and he has to look at it.
Well, the referee was pointing at the ball on the field.
Well, then there you go. So he obviously thought that he took the ball before the player, which is not true. He touched the player first. But again, then it becomes a question of evaluation. Like, did he touch him enough? I don't know. I think you can argue it both ways, honestly. And I understand that you feel aggrieved, but equally I would have understood if that goal was given, and Napoli fans would I really don't know what.
I think that's a fair way. I think that's a fair analysis of it. To be honest with you, well, I'm glad we cleared that up now, because then we can talk about the stuff away from the
You mean you can have a hate fest on Allegri? Is that what you mean? Yes. Clear that away so I can hate on Allegri.
yes. Well, look, first of all, I would say that whatever your view of that, to concede a goal, have 2 goals disallowed, and then to concede in the injury time, whatever the legality of that first goal, Di Maria. Yeah, there's still a little bit of bad luck involved in this game for Juventus to lose the game. And that brings me on to the biggest issue here. The issue isn't about how Juventus played, because I think Juventus were competitive in this game, and as a team, they were organised. And I think that one thing that Juventus definitely have, even through this bad run of form they've gone, is that they are, from a mental point of view and a physical point of view, they're doing okay. There's no issue there. The issue is the same problem for Juventus that we've had for 2 years under Allegri now. Juventus cannot create chances. They cannot create. And I've been going on and on about this for weeks now. This game, Juventus had, wait for it, an XG, 0.28.
God, it's
an
beautiful.
XG,
and yet has scored twice that was disallowed. I mean, does that not tell you what a genius Max Allegri is? Like, I mean, his teams barely create, and yet they had 2 goals disallowed.
Yeah, well, beautiful for you.
I love him.
Beautiful for you, baby.
He gets, the more I fall in love with him.
Well, of course you bloody do. You hate Juventus. You don't like Juventus. Of course you do.
No. Because the thing is, if I hated Juventus, I'd wish for De Zerbi for Juve. And I hope you get your wish, because that would be I would love to see that absolute steaming dumpster fire. But from a hating Juventus perspective, I think if you hate Juve, you want them to get rid of Allegri.
Don't get me started. But I mean, 0.28. That's Juventus's. I mean, so that's Juventus's lowest XG of the season. Their entire season, that's their lowest XG. Now, bear in mind that this XG of 0.28 came in a game where Juventus actually didn't play badly. There's been some games this season where Juventus have been absolutely horrific. They've been disjointed. They've been as a structurally a mess. I don't think they were structurally a mess in this game.
They were very sound structurally.
I thought structurally they were okay.
Yeah.
But they don't create chances. They had an XG of 0.28, and they don't create chances at all in open play. They are, as I said a couple of weeks ago, I haven't double checked this since, but it definitely wouldn't have improved, because their last 2 games they had an X.G against Sassuolo of 0.7 something, and they've had an XG of 0.28 in this game. So they're actually probably gone further down the table, the XG table, since then. But they were 10th when I checked this about 10 days ago, 10th in Serie A for XG from open play this season. And their XG of their last games: Napoli 0.28, Sassuolo 0.65. Sorry, I gave I went a bit too high there. Sporting.
Hold on, calm down. Don't get excited.
Sporting the first game against Sporting, they had an XG of 0.86, and they had an open play XG of like 0.2 or 0.3 in that game. Inter, the game that they won, they had an XG of 0.65. I mean, these numbers are just unsustainable, but you just can't win with these kind of numbers. You can't be successful.
And yet Juventus could have won yesterday if they weren't a bit unlucky. Like, this is what I mean. He is building, and I mean, for that goal, it's Fagioli who doesn't do the work back, and that's the second time.
Well, I actually think you can go as far back as Cuadrado doing that stupid dive, doing that stupid ridiculous dive.
What was that?
Well, it's ridiculous because we're living in the VAR age now, where you can't win penalties for that anymore. You can't
run into someone.
You can't kick a player and get a penalty.
Yeah, exactly. Like, Juan Jesus has got his back to you idiot.
Yeah, well, it came from Cuadrado because Cuadrado dived, didn't get the penalty, laid on the floor and rolled around and then they went up the other end, and his right back position was vacant, and that's where he scored. He scored in Cuadrado's vacant right. Okay, you can say Fagioli should have reacted and covered. Yes, he should have done.
But it's part of the percorso. That's part of the growth. That's part of understanding. And Fagioli's learnt that. He's made 2 significant errors where Juve have been punished. And I think that's part of the growth process, because I think that if he's going to make it as a Juventus player, if you're going to make it at Inter, Milan and Juve, this is part of the growth. You have to learn from your mistakes, especially when you're a young player. And this is just part for the course. And I think, because I believe in Fagioli. I think Rovella, Fagioli, Miretti, Locatelli. I thought Locatelli, by the way, was brilliant yesterday. I think this is how Juventus need to build.
I'm still not completely sold on Fagioli yet. I'll be honest with you, but I'm not. At the same time, I'm not saying he's not going to make it. I'm just saying I'm not.
I think he deserves.
I'm not sold on him yet. Yeah.
No, I understand why. I understand what your thinking is, and I kind of, to a certain extent, agree with it. But I do think that Juventus are doing the right thing in building around this group.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm much rather them try to build and develop a player like Fagioli rather than go with someone we just know is not good enough, like they would do it for like they did in like Paredes, or like they did in the first half of the season with McKennie. Players that and they're not good enough and never going to be good enough. Fagioli, he might not become good enough, but let's wait and see. Let's try and develop him and see if we can get him to be good enough.
Exactly.
I'd rather them go that route than just
me too.
I'm
like that with all Italian clubs. I'd rather they do that than go with this kind of so-called
tried and tested, but not going to be good enough kind of formula.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so Juventus losing this game, and this is a big concern now for Juventus, because we're now into the home stretch. There's 7 games left in Serie A, and Juventus are in the 2 cups, and they've got massive games coming up in the semi-finals coming up. Juventus's form is terrible. They've fallen apart at the worst time possible, because like I said a few weeks ago, a month ago, Juventus were going on this good run of form. They put a string of wins together, and I mean, I wasn't ever going to say, all right, Je suis Max Allegri. I was never going to shout that out from the rooftop. But at least I was seeing the improvement, certainly in the results anyway. But now, I mean, they've now gone 3 straight Serie A defeats
and they're going to
in a row.
They're going to make, and everything is going to be good when they make Inter pay on Wednesday and go to the Coppa Italia final. Yeah,
like they were going to do in the first leg. Yeah, I mean, their last 7 games, Juventus have won 1, drawn 3, lost 3, scored 5 goals in the 7 games, and that one win was a fluke against Sporting Lisbon. They got played off the park in that first leg. So Juventus are in a critical position now, because their form has completely fallen apart. And if they don't, find themselves again, immediately their whole season will fall apart, and getting the 15 points back, which we're going to come to in a minute, will have been completely irrelevant. All the fuss and the crying from both sides about Juventus getting this win would have been completely irrelevant. We might as well have not gone through all this process, because it will be completely irrelevant if Juventus don't get their form back, because the top four race is now very tight again because of these
look
three.
At their fixture list, for goodness sake. Of course, Juventus are going to finish in the top four.
Well, they've lost to Sassuolo last week. I mean, they're 3 points. They lost to Sassuolo last week. That's a fact. So only 3 points above Milan in fifth now. And they still have to play Milan in the run-in, second from I think it's the second from last game or third from last game.
They've got Bologna away, Lecce at home, Atalanta away, Cremonese at home, Empoli away, Milan away, Udinese away. They can afford to lose against Atalanta and Milan and draw against Bologna, win the rest, which they are good enough to do, and then they'll finish in the top four.
Well, they have to improve their form. I mean, the top four race is very tight now. They've only got a 3-point gap over Milan. And, the point is they have to find their form again immediately.
True.
Immediately. They've got Inter next in the Coppa Italia semi-final second leg. 1-1 from the first leg. The second leg's at San Siro. They're rightly considered underdogs to go through.
No, because they've rested pretty much all the players, all the starters.
So did Inter.
Exactly. Exactly. But my point is exactly this: that Juve and Inter are going into that game fully rested and fully fired up. So he's coming for Inter. He's coming for Inzaghi.
Based on their form and performance,
Napoli is the worst thing that could have happened for Inter. It's just.
Well, I don't know if I'd agree. The point is they have to get their form back because they've completely fallen apart in this month. And of course, they haven't got Sevilla in the Europa League semis, which is a golden chance in the Europa League for them to end this long European trophy drought that dates back to 1996 or 97 if you include the European Super Cup, which they thrashed PSG in. 9-1, I remember that very well. So they want to end this long European trophy drought. They've got a golden chance, and Sevilla knocked out Man United, which was fantastic. But on form, I mean, Sevilla have suddenly hit form now. Sevilla are in fantastic form all of a sudden, haven't been dreadful all season. So, Juventus have to find themselves. They can't afford any more slip-ups now because every single competition is now on the line.
Look, I want 5 teams. I want 5 Serie A teams in the Champions League next season. And there's no doubt in my mind that Juventus are going to go to finish in the top 4. So I hope they get to the final, and I hope it's an all-Italian Europa League final, and I hope Roma win, because I don't think Roma are finishing in the top 5, especially with Chris Smalling out as long as he's going to be out. That is a huge
How long is he going to be out for?
Well, he's going to even miss the Inter game now. There's talk of, because when they took him out, so when he came off against Feyenoord in that insane game. So Roma's chance, I think, to finish in the top, to play in the Champions League goes through the Europa League. And I mean, they play, they're scheduled to play Inter on the 6th of May. So he's going to miss Atalanta tonight. We're recording this on a Monday. Milan at home, Monza away, and Inter at home. That's 4 Serie A games. This is match day. So he'll be back earliest for match day 35. So for me, Roma are out, and he is that important to Roma. I mean, we saw it against Feyenoord. The minute he came off injured, their defense just fell completely apart because Roger Ibanez is just not good enough.
We'll see. Listen, the point is, Juventus, if they don't improve massively, then they're not going to get the points needed, and their season's going to fall apart. Their last 7 games show it. The bigger picture, though, is away from what's going to happen between now and the end of the season, is regardless of what happens between now and the end of the season, and I really hope Juventus at least win a trophy. But I would want them to win the Europa League. I'd love them to win the Europa League. It's been so long without a European trophy. Regardless of what happens between now and the end of the season, Allegri has to go at the end of the season. This is just, I've given you those numbers before, but this is just unsustainable. I mean, 8 defeats in Serie A now this season, 13 defeats in all competitions, 13. And, for all those that say they see improvement with Allegri this season, well, I'm sorry, the numbers totally say the opposite. There is no improvement. He's now on course for 72 points this season on average. That's including the 15 points they got back for the points penalty. And that number is falling each week, that 72 points that they're forecast to get based on the points average, because of the form they're in. Now, to put that into context, Pirlo got 78 points in his one disastrous season, right? So he's 6 points off that at present. Now, Allegri got 70 points last season, which he rightfully got widely hammered for. So he's on course right now to only get 2 points more than last season. He's had the same number of losses in Serie A this season as he had the entire of last season, and there's still 7 games to go. He's on course to score 57 goals this season in Serie A on the goal average per game. That's the same number, again, that Juventus scored all of last season. So he's not improved the attack. The attack hasn't improved at all. It's exactly the same as last season. The only thing he has improved is the defence. He's on course to concede 31 goals, which is 5 less than last season. So, I know there's been all this shit off the pitch. No one's denying that has played a role. We've discussed about that at length. But in terms of the numbers, this isn't evidence of improvement, and that is the end of it.
I think he's going to win the Coppa Italia. I've said it before this season, and I had Roma, actually. I was looking through our season predictions, and I had Roma as my dark horse to win the Europa League and demanded that Fiorentina get to the final of the Conference League. And I have Juventus winning the Coppa Italia, and I think that's what he's going to do. I think they're going to finish in the top 4, they're going to win the Coppa Italia, and then maybe even the Europa League, if they can get past Sevilla. But you have to be careful, because Sevilla in this competition, it's the Sevilla League. I mean, it doesn't matter how awful they are. They always reach the semi and the final, and they usually end up winning it. So you can't underestimate Sevilla. And in the Europa League, it's their competition. So no,
absolutely. I hope they're right. I hope you're right. I hope they do go all the way. But even if they do, even if they win both trophies, I just think this is not sustainable. And even Allegri said at the end of the game against Napoli that Juventus will challenge for the Scudetto next season.
I think they will. I think he's right.
Which is all good. Well, it's all good of being confident, but what is he basing that on? Because I've just given you the numbers. There's been no improvements from season to season. You can't just say, automatically things are just going to go from Z to A. They're not.
I don't think it's automatic. What I base that on is that he's sorted out the defense, and next season will be the first summer where we don't have, we will have caught up after the pandemic. No international tournaments, no nothing, just 3 months of mercato. And I don't count the Nations League. Please stop. That's a friendly at the end of the season. So it's going to have 3 months off. The players are going to have a much needed rest. You can plan the season. You're not going to have the interruption in the middle of it with the World Cup and so on and so forth. And you're back to normality after the pandemic for the first time in 4 years. So I think that's what he's basing it off of. And also, he's also basing it off of what they're going to do off the what the plan is out the window. Paredes is going to leave. Who's going to stay. I think he's basing it off on that next season is when they're going to have a normal season. But again, we don't know what will happen in these other things. Even if Juve were to finish in the top 4, even if Juventus were to win the Europa League,
Winish.
Winish, yeah. Even if they were to win the Europa League.
Sounds like some Dutch guy saying winning. It's like Steve McLaren, that interview we did that time. Do you remember that?
I do remember that. We don't even know what UEFA are going to do to Juve. If they throw Juve out of European competitions and give them transfer bans, we don't know. That could actually happen.
No, it could. Well, that brings us on nicely then. Just quickly, Nima, give us. Well, I say quickly. We'll try and make it quick. We'll try and make it quick.
This is not a quick thing to do.
So on Thursday, it was announced that Juventus have had their 15-point Serie A penalty revoked, pending the new trial in the capital gains case. The case will now go to the FIGC Federal Court of Appeal for the last final judgment. So that meant that
it's not the final judgment because
if the judgment goes against them, they could appeal. Juventus could appeal. Yeah, exactly. I know. But for what will hopefully be the final judgment, but maybe might not be. This pushed Juventus at the time up to 3rd place in Serie A. The bans for Andrea Agnelli, Maurizio Arrivabene, Federico Cherubini, and
Paratici.
were not revoked. Nedved and some other members of the board, though, were cleared. So Nima, right? I'm going to ask you a few questions. I want you to answer these questions just as a kind of like simple, straightforward, no opinion, just simple legal Q&A question. So first, because we know Italian law is just a total joke and a total mess, so this might help explain things for the layman. So first of all, when will this final appeal be heard, and will it be finished to affect the final standings this season, or could the points penalties be pushed over to next season? This is specifically in the capital gains
case.
The capital gains case.
The answer is all options are on the table because what is going to happen is we're going to have a retrial for Juventus point deductions, and the as you mentioned, the Arrivabene, Cherubini, Agnelli's, Paratici, their convictions were upheld. So this is just Juventus for the points deduction for capital gains. That trial needs to be redone completely. And when that is and how much that is, look, UEFA are going to, even if UEFA will demand from the Italian FA to speed this process up, because they have a break-off point where every league has to be decided in order for the next season to begin. That's just how it is. And UEFA are going to demand that this is sorted in some manner. They won't go in and tell the FIGC what to do, but they will tell them we need a final decision on the league table for this season that's completed, so that we can start next season. Like that's just.
And what's the deadline for that?
I can't tell you with 100% certainty, but it used to be somewhere around mid-July, but things have changed a lot in the last 10, 15 years. When I was last time I was looking at this was in 2006. For obvious reasons, but since then a lot could have happened. But there is a break-off point at which UEFA will tell people, like, we need to know what the final league table is, because we need to move forward, because we need to know who's going to be in our tournaments and competitions. So that's just going to that'll put pressure on them. So that's going to have to be sorted. But what it means in terms of points penalties, if it's pushed to next season or will go to this season, I couldn't tell you that right now. No one can. Every option is possible and plausible right now.
Okay. What do you expect to happen?
Well, this is something where I got to say I've changed my mind because of Corney's verdict. Because of the fact that they did uphold the convictions of Arrivabene, Agnelli, Cherubini and Paratici, I think it's more likely now than not that there will be some form of point deduction for Juventus. For the plusvalenza case. How much that will be, I can't imagine that it's more than 6-7 points. I really can't, because it's clear that they felt that the 15 points were far too harsh, and that they weren't and the way that they worded it, not just the judgment, but the prosecutor said there was a lack of clarity with regards to the justification of the 15 points. So that suggests to me that they were not happy with how this decision was reached, but at the same time, they also upheld the convictions and bans of Agnelli, Arrivabene, Cherubini and Paratici, which, again, Article 4, ethics. If you act in a way, whether or not you succeed with whatever with something that's not allowed, just trying to do it is in and of itself an offense. And that them holding those convictions and upholding them, to me, suggests that they are moving towards a situation where they will give Juventus a few points. I don't think it's going to be anywhere near 15. I'd say around somewhere between 3 to 6. That's what I would guess that this ends up. But of course, Juventus can then appeal that, and it wouldn't surprise me when all is said and done, Juventus don't get anything at the end of that appeal.
And if they do appeal, then that could be pushing it into next season anyway, right?
Well,
do they get the points back before the appeal, or does it stay?
That remains to be seen, because it depends on the process. If it's going to take such a long time, then the FIGC will have to just confirm and say this season is finished, and then we'll push it to next season. All those options are on the table.
What a mess. Okay, right. Question total mess, shambles. That's going to be my final point. So the third question is the other more serious case, in my opinion, it's my opinion, on Juventus.
Everyone's opinion. I mean, that's the one.
On
To
Juventus
me, the Cruz Valenza case is just a distraction.
Juventus paying players under the table. Will that case or judgment happen before the end of the current season? And if there is a judgment against Juventus with a points penalty in the wages case, and there is an appeal, would the punishment still affect the table this season?
That has to happen before next season. That because of the fact that it goes to the previous seasons in such a serious way that it might even affect the license that Juventus, because they used allegedly falsified financial statements to clear the license to play in the Serie A, that every club has to do. That is far more serious. That has to be decided before we reach that breaking point.
So that depends on what the deadline is.
But I expect that to be. I mean, I think we're 1.5 weeks. I expect Juventus to send their reply in by the end of this week or mid next week, because the FIGC's investigation was concluded about 2 weeks ago, and then Juventus had 2 weeks to send in their reply to everything. And once that's done, it's going to be litigated and then ruled on. I think there is a serious risk here. This is where I think there is a serious risk that Juventus could be relegated. This is the one that I think people. And
this will be sporting punishments, not just.
This is the FIGC,
not just criminal.
No. Right. They're not connected. This is the Italian FA's investigation. The criminal case, that's separate. That'll take years. I think that's going to drag on for years because that's such a serious issue. And also it's a criminal case, and criminal cases have, because of the fact that the penalty in criminal cases have prison, meaning prison time, you take away another human being's liberty and movement in society, ergo, those things will take longer and there's a higher evidence threshold that has to be met. It's beyond reasonable doubt usually, as opposed to balance of probabilities and stuff like that. So that's not that like, we don't even go into that. Like that's for them. And also the people charged are not even, they're not even at Juventus anymore. So it doesn't really concern us. This is about the FIGC ruling. This is about the Italian FA and what they intend to do. And this is the one that I think is the one to watch out for. And this is the one that could potentially see UEFA in their own investigation suspend Juventus from European competitions and give them a transfer ban even.
Right, and if Juventus appeal to this one, then what happens?
They can appeal it as much as they want, but then there is always a final appeal on this, and I think we will reach that point pretty quickly. Like it could be a situation where they, like in 2006, send Juventus to Serie C, and then they appeal it and get to Serie B.
Right,
that is a real possibility, and I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying that is a real possibility.
Okay, right. The final point that I'm going to make a point here. This is just my own personal point. This isn't to do with who's guilty or who's not guilty. This is just to do with the whole process and everything, the whole system, the whole Italian legal system and everything. And I'm going to say what drives me mad about this, and then you can tell me what you think of this in terms of from a legal point of view. So again, just to underline, without going to who is guilty on either of these cases and who is not, what the punishment should be for every case, one thing that is insane to me is how everything here seems so arbitrary with these cases in terms of the actual process. It's almost like they're making things up as they go along. There's no actual system to follow. For example, when the trials will be, where they will be, when there will be appeals. Will it be this season? Will it be next season? We need to do it by this deadline. How much the penalties will be. Will it be for this season or will it be for next season? It all seems like they're not basing it on anything. They're not basing it on any precedents. And it just, it just seems all so arbitrary to me. And this is, for me, this is what generates so much mistrust from all sides, for and against, in this case, Juventus. Is that a fair?
No, I think the issue is this. The issue is that Italy, just like all countries that are I don't want to use banana republic, but that have that kind of awe of ludicrousness around their organization and state are incredibly bureaucratic. Italy is incredibly bureaucratic, and that's what takes time. Whether it's new stadiums to be built or whatever it is, the bureaucracy kills. It clogs everything up. That's the issue here. And that is why, no, they're not making it up as they go along. They actually have a protocol to follow. The problem is that it's incredibly bureaucratic. It's incredibly old-fashioned, and it takes forever for everything to get rolling. And we live in an age where time is of the essence and everything is instantaneous. So that's the issue. It's the administrative process that takes forever because it's not been modernized. And this is a problem all legal systems really have to some extent.
Well, I hear what you're saying, but I actually think it's the opposite here in terms of the bureaucracy. Because, if you're telling me something as serious as the wages case, and it is incredibly serious, and the punishment, if it is going to be potentially very serious, like you say it is, you can't possibly expect an appeals process to be done in a couple of weeks or a few weeks.
Well, the thing is,
it's just impossible. That's just not fair trial. So it's just
the right to a fair trial also involves that it's quick, that it doesn't take too long. So there's two ways of arguing that. The problem here...
I understand what the issue is. The issue is that you've got a season to finish and you've got to be ready for the next season. I understand that completely. But, if you're talking about really serious punishments, you cannot have an appeal.
Well, that's the thing. Well, the thing is, the appeal... Well, that's the thing. That's where you're wrong. The appeal is not the main trial. The main trial is the main trial, and they're going to have that main trial. The main trial is where all of the time takes place. That's
fine. But if you have an appeal, you need to give it the proper time.
And it will be given a proper trial. But again, the process of appeal is there a question of law or question of procedure where the defendant, if it's a matter of question of law, what was the mistake or what was the wrong interpretation? And if it's a question of procedure, was the rights of the defendant infringed upon? Those things are minor compared to the actual main trial, which is, did Juventus and their directors illegally and deliberately pay players off the books to make their finances look better? That's the main question. That's the main trial. And that's what's taking time. The appeal will be whether or not in that main trial, administratively, the rights of the defendants was respected and followed, or if it's a question of law, what is the question of law that they're appealing it on? Is there anything in that trial that, legally speaking, was not followed, or if there's something that's unclear? That's what you appeal on. An appeal court can never take as long as the main court. It doesn't do that in Italy. It doesn't do it in Sweden. It doesn't do it in the UK. It's just not possible. That's just not how it works. The main trial is when the main issues are litigated for and against, and then a verdict is produced.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I just think for something that potentially as serious as this, you can't rush them. You can't say...
we can't say that they've rushed. I wonder if the criminal trial happens before...
Well, they might not have rushed it. They might not have rushed
birthday.
it, but the point is the season ends in a month, so they obviously want to get it done by the end of the season.
Well, they have to, because it's been going on for 9 months, 7 months. Look, and it's been, and you have to understand the process has been going on. Juventus lawyers have not stopped working. Everyone is working. It's just that we don't. I
just find, even like if you've got four, because there's 4 cases, isn't there, going on? Who decides whether one of them is done this season and one is done next season, or they're all done at the same time? Because if you do 2 of them at the same time, hang on. If you do 2 of them this season, then obviously you add the 2 points together. That is more significant. Whereas if there's some of the points where this season and some of the points for next season, then that changes the dynamic in one way or another.
Personally,
who decides that? Do you know? This is what I mean by the timeline being arbitrary. That's what I mean.
No, but that's the thing, though. If you decide to separate the two, the capital gains case and the wages thing, that to me is a weird thing. I would have combined and had both trials at once. But the fact that they separated them...
Well, exactly. That's another point.
That to me is strange.
That's kind of my overall point. Yeah, I'm not arguing to separate them. I'm saying who makes the decision whether they're separate, whether they're this season, next season.
I can't answer who did what, but it seems to me that Juventus had no problem with separating these two cases, which I think is crazy. I think they should have been together. Because they're all within the same legal framework, meaning it's the FIGC, which goes under the Italian Olympic Committee. So it's a sporting issue, right? I think they should have concurrently had one trial because it's all the Prisma investigation. But they decided to break it up, one on capital gains and one on the so-called salary maneuver, right? They decided to do that. And that is what I think is bizarre. And I read a really good article by this from Il Sole 24 journalist Marco Bellinazzo, who exactly was arguing this point. The sporting system needs, the judicial system of sports in Italy needs a reform, because breaking this up like this is absurd. There was no need to do that. You could have saved, you could have saved a lot of hassle and drama back and forth by having one trial, because they're all relating to the same investigation, the Prisma investigation. Now, the counter argument to that is that actually the Plusvalenza case was already an open case, meaning Juventus had been cleared of wrongdoing. That ruling was then appealed. Then the Prisma investigation broke and new evidence surfaced, and that was on basis on that they were convicted with the 15 points, which was then appealed. Do you see what I'm saying? Yeah. So you do understand their point, because the Prisma investigation was completely unknown to the Italian FA when they were prosecuting the capital gains case, which Juventus won in the first instance. But then the Prisma investigation broke, new evidence came to light, that was then used in the Court of Appeals, and Juventus were given a 15 points ban. Do you see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So there was a process ongoing before that. But yes, I do believe, it is my firm belief, that they should have somehow tried to put them both together, because this is ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. Anyway, we must move on.
Yeah.
We're on the 50-minute mark, so the rest of the show. Apologies if you don't care at all about Juventus. Yeah. You know what? We could have just done this first and not debated about Juventus getting in the Champions League, because it's probably going to be irrelevant. So it's going to be irrelevant anyway, because Allegri's not going to get the points with the 15 points. So,
no, seriously, I honestly don't know what's going to happen. I've never been. I've honestly, everyone I speak to in Italy, regardless of who they support and where they are, they don't want to go on the record, but they all say they're expecting Serie B for the salary maneuver, and that is, I don't know. I think it's a real risk. I wouldn't be so sure. I think the salary maneuver is incredibly serious. I think that is a real risk, yes, but I wouldn't be so sure to say that yes, they're definitely getting relegated. But that is incredibly serious. Let's not. I don't want to lie to people. I think people should expect. They should be prepared that we could have an absolute.
It is
bomb.
serious. It is serious. I don't know what the punishments would be for that. I just know it's very, very serious. That's all.
If you and I did that, we'd spend the rest of our natural lives, even if we were Hindus who were reborn 3 times over in prison. It's incredibly serious if convicted.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I'm sure there'll be time to discuss that anyway. Let's Milan Lecce, Rafael Leao show. Great week for Rafael Leao. He scored both goals to win 2-0 against Lecce. It was Lecce, wasn't it? I'm going mad now. Too much discussion.
Yeah. No, Leao was Leao.
Rafael Leao, 2 goals. He scored a header, which is only his second header that he's ever scored for Milan.
But that was straight off the training ground. That move. That they did, Milan, that corner, it was completely, you could tell, because the idea was play a short pass in, then play it out, and then overload the far post, because there were 3 Milan players on the far post. That was straight off the training ground. So it was a lovely worked move by Milan. And
it was.
Lecce were good. They created chances. They should have scored if what's his name? I think Banda hit the post when it was missing a sitter almost. Yeah. But Leao is just he is a star. He is a superstar. You know, this is big game. You know, big players win you games, and he is a big player.
Well, he was the difference between a draw and a win. In this game,
maybe even a loss. We don't know.
Well, yeah. I mean, I would say one thing I would say though, it's good to see he score a header. He needs to score more headers, because somebody that's 1.90 m, he's not good enough in the air.
But if you remember, Ibrahimovic was not very good until the latter stages of his career in the air as well.
Yeah. And this has been part of my issue with Rafael Leao playing as a striker, is that I don't think he's good enough with his back to goal. He's not good at protecting the ball, and he's not good enough aerially, which is part of that game as well. And he's certainly not good enough when the ball's come into the air, attacking the ball with headers, which you need to do as a central striker as well. He said he said after the game, this is something that he's been working out for hours after training on his headers, and I think Pioli spoke about that as well. So that's something definitely for him to improve in his game. The second goal, we know, it's a trademark goal. Running with the ball and then from the left and scoring. And it's been a great recovery for Leao this month since the international break. He's got 4 goals, 2 assists in 4 starts this month. And if he carries that on, then Milan have every chance of rescuing the top 4 and
this is the business end of the season. This is the business end of the season. This is when you need to be good. This is when you need to deliver, and this is when Rafael Leao turns up. It's the second season in a row when he turns up from March, April onwards into May, and that's when it matters. This is when it matters, and he's turning up. We'll see. I mean, the thing is, a lot of what people aren't talking about is that Milan reaching the semi-final of the Champions League could actually lead them to affording to pay his Leao in the contract talks because it's extra money they didn't budget for. They could use that extra money to sign a contract extension with him, pay off that fee to Sporting that he owes, and even pay taxes on it as a wage. They can afford that now in the semi-final. So so that's a very good thing for Milan. But on the negative side, they don't know if they're in the Champions League next season, so they can't do that until they know their destiny there. Because if they don't go to the Champions League next season, they absolutely can't afford to extend his contract, and they will probably have to sell him this summer. Not because they can't afford his wages, but they can't afford to pay that 16 million. Because that's a wage expense. That means that'll cost Milan 32 million, just that alone.
Yeah.
Which is...
No, spot on. Talking of attackers rediscovering themselves, Romelu Lukaku in this Empoli 0 Inter 3 game. Now, I know he's had a lot of false starts, but this was the old Lukaku. If only for one game.
The second goal for sure. That was vintage Lukaku. The first half was vintage Lukaku. He was unwatchable. All of Inter they didn't create anything. They were just walking around on the pitch like it was a training game. There was no intensity. There was nothing. Just sideways passing of the ball. Roberto Gagliardini got the most chances, and obviously, naturally, he squandered them, but he was all right, So no, it was in the second half. This was for once. Inter behaved like a big team. Calm, composed, cool, didn't rush things, didn't create 1 million chances. They realized that the game was 90 minutes. They didn't push too much in the beginning. They kind of played off the first half. And then in the second half, that's when, they decided that they were going to turn up the heat and work their way into the game. It was brilliant game management. It was even, the rotations were all spot on. I think this is how Inzaghi should have approached this season. Inter would not have 11 losses if he had approached it like this. And I think this is completely lands on his doorstep. That how you manage games. You don't need to bum rush into games. The game is 90 minutes long. You don't need to turn on, pedal to the metal from minute 1, create 100 million chances, then, have missed them, and then it, becomes a mental thing. No. This was more the kind of mature coaching, big club coaching that I want to see from Inzaghi, and I'm glad he did at this moment. But again, Lukaku, the first goal, good goal, but the second goal, vintage Lukaku. Like, that was fantastic from him.
Yeah, it definitely was. It definitely was. And the question is, is it a one-off, or can we expect this of Lukaku for the rest of the season? I mean, he has improved recently. 6 goal contributions in the last 6 games. I mean, numerically, he is improving.
Yeah. Look, my position is the same as it was a few months ago when we spoke about this. I don't think he will ever become as good as he was under Conte those 2 seasons. I just think that's impossible. physically, technically, in terms of killer instinct in the box. I don't think he'll ever be that player. But, and by that, I mean, I don't think he'll ever become world-class, because he was world-class those 2 seasons. He was mentioned, but he was one of the best number 9s in the world. I don't think he will ever become that again. But I think he does have a level or a role to play, scoring his 15, 20 goals, something like that, overall in the course of a season. Yes, I think he will. But the 30 that he was on 3 years ago, I just don't see that.
You want to hear something funny though, and this says more about Chelsea than it does about Lukaku. And I think everybody will agree. Anybody that's watched Serie A this season will tell you that Lukaku has had a largely disastrous season, both in terms of form and in terms of fitness. Right? That's correct. I'm correct, right?
Yeah.
That's correct.
Yes. Oh yes.
Okay. Fair enough. Just wanted to clear that up. Well, Lukaku has 12 goal contributions this season. So that's goals and assists, right? Now that is more goal contributions than any player at Chelsea Football Club this season.
I love how you say Chelsea Football Club.
Chelsea Football Club, yeah. Well, I don't know if it's a football club, actually, to be honest with you. The way they've been
specifying what you're talking about, I think, is brilliant. Not Chelsea the circus, but Chelsea the football club.
The players at Chelsea with the most goal contributions this season, I did an article on it yesterday. I was doing a bit of research, and I just found it was just hilarious. I thought there must be somebody that has more goal contributions than Lukaku's 12. No. And 12 is not a good number for an attacker. Kai Havertz has 10. And Raheem Sterling has 10. Havertz has 9 goals and 1 assist, and Sterling has 7 goals and 3 assists. And I'll just read out some of the other numbers just because it's funny, and I just want to laugh at Chelsea. So Noni Madueke, who joined in January, 0-0, 0 goals, 0 assists. João Felix, who joined in January, 2-0. Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, 3-1. Armando Broja, 1-0. Dacho Fofana, 0-0. Mason Mount, 3-4. Mount has the most assists in the Chelsea squad with 4 assists. 2 in the Premier League is the most, by the way, for a Chelsea player. Christ. Pulisic, 1-2. The Ukrainian Dan James, 0-2. Hakim Ziyech, 0-1.
Well, soccer's LeBron James, Christian Pulisic, 1-2.
Yes. Do you remember that? Who was it
oh, God. Oh, that makes me these comparisons is just
But I just found that quite amusing that as bad as Lukaku's been this season, that he still has more goal contributions than anyone at his parent club, which is pretty hilarious.
But I mean, if we're overall of this game, for me the most positive thing from an Inter aspect was, aside from, as I said, how they approached the game, controlled, it was Lula, Lautaro and Lukaku together. That was Lula. That was the old Lula, the way that they moved together, the way that they understood each other, the way that they linked up, not just for the assist to Lautaro, but just generally the vibe around them was Lula. And here's a golden chance for both of them. From now on until the end of the season, if they were to bring Inter to a Coppa Italia title, to a Champions League final, regardless of what happens in the league, look, remember Fernando Torres at Chelsea? That goal against Barcelona deleted everything else. He will go down as the guy who took Chelsea to the Champions League final, which they eventually won. This is where Lukaku is now. If he were to lead Inter and become the focal point of an Inter that wins the Coppa Italia, that brings to the Champions League final, and God, if you were to play it by some miracle of God, Inter were to win that, everything, the last 2 years would have been erased, completely forgiven and forgotten, because he would have won the Champions League and he would have been the reason to win it. So this is an opportunity now. Yeah.
No, it is. It sure is. It is to become legends for both all the Inter players and the Milan players. Yeah. Lazio, surprise loss for Lazio, and they struggled badly against Torino. Lost 1-0. I watched this game and I thought Torino were the better team, created the better chances. They were well organised. They were physical, very physical. They bullied Lazio. They caused all problems into the Lazio defence, which we know Lazio have the best defence in Serie A this season. Sanabria caused all kinds of problems. I thought they were very good at the back. Buongiorno, Shures and Gigi were comfortable. Milinkovic-Savic, I think, quite underrated goalkeeper, actually. He's grown on me, Milinkovic-Savic. I wasn't a big fan of him until recently, but he's grown on me. And Ilic, obviously, he scored the winner. It was a big mistake from Providel, but he's I like him. I like Ilic as well. I thought Torino absolutely deserved their win, and Lazio should be fine for the. I mean, they got such a big gap there, but they've just left the top four door open slightly because they're now 4 points above Milan and they're 7 points above Inter, but they play Inter this weekend.
If they lose to Inter, that's 4 points.
Yeah, and Milan, they then play Milan not next week, the week after, or in 2 match days' time. They play Milan away.
That defeat against Torino is not good. I think they'll still be fine because I just don't see the other teams putting together consistent enough runs to catch them up. But they've left the door slightly open. That's the point. I don't know, man. I don't know. I think we'll know by the end of this weekend, like the next weekend, because if they were to lose to Inter and be 4 points ahead of Inter, then and they have to play Milan, who will play Roma on this weekend as well, if I'm not mistaken. Don't Milan and Roma play this weekend?
Yes.
Coming up? Yeah.
Yes.
So and Roma, I think, are going to lose that because of the injury situation with Smalling. If that were to happen, if Milan and Inter both win, Lazio are in a dogfight now, and then they have to play Milan, who, I mean, this is. I'm nervous here for Lazio.
Yeah. Just a word of more than criticism. Another racism incident with Lazio fans. Singo, and was it Radonjic as well? Did Radonjic suffer racism, or am I making that up?
I think I saw something about that.
Yeah, but Singo definitely. Anyway.
Yeah, but I mean, what do you expect? I mean, the way that it's Italian football handles these issues. I mean, the entire theatrics surrounding this weekend, where Romelu Lukaku's suspension was the second yellow card was pardoned by the FA, president of the Italian FA. I mean, he was given a pardon. And I have people telling me, there you go. It's like, what would you want me to do? Would you want me to do cartwheels? You think this is good? The fact that they couldn't make the right decision at the third attempt, and the president of the Italian FA had to come in and pardon Lukaku, it just tells you everything you need to know. It's like, what are you? The bar is not even on the floor. It's under Satan's balls in hell. That's how low it is. It's embarrassing. This entire thing, and of course it's going to keep on happening. How are we surprised at this? It's going to keep on happening because they don't know how to handle it properly. And the new president of the Italian Referees Association coming out saying, well, it's right to give Lukaku the yellow card because when you celebrate in a provocative manner, it's like this is not going to go away. This is going to happen again and again and again and again. So, and it doesn't matter. And again, it's not Lazio's fans. It's not Inter's fans, not Juve. This is an Italian football problem, and Italian football doesn't know how to handle it. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, fine. Okay, right, we've gone way over today. We were going to do a segment on Italian football with the 5 of the 12 semi-finalists from Serie A in the semi-finals of Europe to get it out. And we'll save that for Thursday, and we'll do because I want to do a real deep segment on that and discussing whether Italian football is back. It deserves more time than we can give it now. The rest of the Serie A weekend match calendar, I'm just going to read out the results. We haven't got time to talk about it. Verona 2, Bologna 1, Salernitana 3, Sassuolo 0, Sampdoria 1, Spezia 1, Udinese 3, Cremonese 0, Monza 3, Fiorentina 2, and then, as we said, Atalanta play Roma tonight. We're recording this on Monday afternoon. Just before we finish off with Baggio and Prem Face of the week, so we've got the Coppa Italia semi-final second legs. On Wednesday, we've got Inter at home to Juventus, 1-1 from the first leg in Turin. And then Fiorentina at home to Cremonese. They lead 2-0 from the first leg away. So they're in Florence in the second leg. So everything to play for. We were going to go into a little bit more detail on these games, but we've run out of time. But obviously we'll do a full review of the Inter Juve game on Thursday's show. So we'll go into a lot of detail. I'm sure that's going to be an eventful game, probably with more controversy.
Without a doubt. I mean, the Inter-Juve thing is like, it's heated up so much because this is really the Serie A we grew up with. isn't it? This Serie A with so many teams in the top of Europe, so many competitive teams, and controversy and every single game ends in a brawl between. This is the Serie A I grew up with, and it's a bit nostalgic, to be honest.
Yeah, it certainly is. Right, let's finish off with Baggio and Prem Face of the week. Right, Baggio.
We got two, don't we? It's Serie A teams in Europe for the first time ever. 5 teams at the semi-final stage in the 3 competitions. Incredible. That is unbelievable. But I want to give a little shout out to. But for me, the Baggio of the week is someone who's been on the show. We interviewed him. We were very grateful and happy that we were able to interview him. Alessandro Diamanti, who has today, when we're recording this, announced that he's hanging up his boots. He's going to end his career, and he really was had a magical left foot, and he's such a cool character and guy.
Hilarious guy.
Yeah, yes. He's really he's got this like surfer vibe, like chilled out, relaxed, like funny guy vibe. And we interviewed him about a year ago. Pretty exactly. I think it was March 2020. No, 2 years ago. It's 2023 now. Yeah. Jesus. 2 years ago, in March 2021, we interviewed him. So go and check that out. What I remember from that interview is I asked him a question. I said, who's the craziest footballer that you ever played with? Is it Cassano or is it Balotelli? And he got a coin out. He got a coin out during the and because we did it on video, and he tossed the coin to see who it was, which is brilliant. I love that. Oh, he's so funny. Yeah.
So amazing left foot, amazing free kick. One of the best free kick takers of his generation.
I mean, I don't know how many goals he scored from the corner, directly from a corner kick as well. I mean, he's truly a wonderful player, and happy retirement, Alino.
Yeah, seconded. Right, Prem Face of the week. I've got 2. Do you have any?
No, I think yours. I think yours are so good.
Okay, right. James Maddison, Leicester City player and England player. I'll read out his tweet. He said, "Aaron Wan-Bissaka is ridiculously good at 1v1 defender. Probably the best in the world, bar none. So many wingers run out of ideas when playing directly against them." So Wan-Bissaka, the best in the world at 1-in-1 defender.
It's like, I was. He must be joking, right? Like, come on, come on.
I mean, listen. To give Wan-Bissaka credit, he is really, really good at 1-on-1 defending. Like when you have wingers that go at him, he is really, really good at 1-on-1 defending. He's dreadful at everything else he does on the football pitch, like horrendous at everything else. But at 1-on-1, he is genuinely he is outstanding 1-on-1 defender, and he's outstanding tackler. But yeah, to say he's the best defender best player in the world at 1-on-1 defending, I mean that is
exaggerate much.
Yeah, and the second one I've got is our friend.
Tim Sherwood.
I should say that was sent in from Samuel Ventress, the Wan-Bissaka one. Just to give him his credit.
Our in-house Prem-Face hunter.
Yeah, our Prem-Face hunter, yeah. We should get him to deliver these, actually, I think.
No, he might as well. I mean, he does
a lot of work for us.
He does a lot of work.
But this Tim Sherwood one I found myself. So this is Tim Sherwood on Anthony Martial. And I read out his quote, and he says, "Martial drives me mad. If I was a manager, he just annoys me looking at him, his miserable face."
It's just like it's so. If you look at the video of that, it's just so unhinged.
Yeah,
it's like what. Like, cause did you forget to eat your Flintstone vitamins that morning, Tim?
Yeah.
Like, what's wrong? Like, did you what's happening? Are you all right, mate? Like, it's just random. He just loses it for no reason.
What a way to analyze a player, eh?
It just drives me mad. His face annoys me. It's like, well, Tim, I don't. If we're talking about
that is a hallmark of the Prem Face, that you rate a player based on their emotional qualities. If a player shows loads of effort and runs around the pitch and charges around like a headless chicken, well, that makes him a good player because he's showing loads of emotion. But if you show the wrong type of emotion, like your head's down or you're miserable, and that makes you a bad player.
Fantastic.
The hallmark of the Prem face.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Right. Let's leave it at that. Thanks, Tim Sherwood. I'm sure we'll be back next week.
Oh, he's really it's like he just came from nowhere and turned into he's having the Prem face version of Sneijder in 2010, where he was like the best player in the world, won 5 titles, won the treble with Inter and almost a World Cup with Holland, and became top goal scorer of the World Cup. And should have been that's the kind of season. That's the last few weeks of Tim Sherwood. He's having
Sherwood will be will show consistency though. I'm certain of that.
Well, maybe. I mean, yeah, we'll see. If they don't kick him, if he doesn't say something really stupid and gets kicked off,
cancelled. Yeah,
that wouldn't surprise me because he's really working up for it. He's having a Sneijder 2010 esque in terms of Prem face. He's
the blood is starting to boil now. Isn't it?
It really is.
It's going to boil over.
He's going to boil over soon. I think Tim is about to have one. He's about to lose it soon.
Yeah, the Prem-faced thermometer is that the
Sneijder 2010. That's where we're at now with Tim Sherwood.
Okay, right. Let's leave it at that. We'll be back on Tuesday for the Q&A episode, and then after that we'll be on Thursday to review the Coppa Italia midweek games, plus a few segments we didn't get to today, including we want to do I think it's going to be really, really good. We're going to do a deep dive on whether Italian football is back, and we're going to look into lots of things there. That should be a good one. We've done a lot of preparation for that.
And that's Patreon only, so make sure to go to patreon.com/TIFP, $2.99 a month, excluding VAT, to get all of that.
Yeah, please do. Okay, we'll see you on Tuesday, guys. Until then, ciao, ciao.